Pittsburgh Steelers are nearly a week through the 2024 NFL Combine, and there's plenty that I am learning down here in Indianapolis that I am excited to bring to you guys. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they are working through the 2024 NFL Combine. So far, they have talked to defensive linemen, some tight ends, couple of safeties, couple of corners. Tomorrow, they'll talk to quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and then they'll top it off with some specialists and some offensive linemen. And we've learned a ton just through interviews alone. Got a sense of the direction that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going in, directions that they are not going in. But there's so much more that happens down here in Indianapolis that I am thrilled to share with you guys. As you work through every day down here, you get to talk to scouts and just different types of people, different beats, different insiders, and just learn more and more about your team that you probably don't learn during this time of the year. If you're not in constant communication with sources and insiders and that kind of stuff, it's tough to get a grasp on what's going on while you're sitting home in February and there is no football going on. But when you come down here, you get to mingle, you get to talk, you get to explore different routes that your team of coverage is going in, and that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing. And so far, they have not held back, and there has been plenty of exciting stuff that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are set to make some splashes with, and I'm excited to bring them to you. Let's start with the actual interviews themselves before we get into some bigger stuff and some names that I think we have to start paying attention to. That first name is Quinyon Mitchell, who they did not meet with at the NFL Combine and are not scheduled to meet with at the NFL Combine. The Toledo cornerback is quickly rising up draft boards, might not even be available for them at pick number 20, but if he is, I have been told so many times that he is their top prospect and that he is a name that they would love to add to their defense. He's a turnover machine. He's physical. You just look at him and you know he's a guy who could make some big hits in some big moments and obviously knows how to use his cover skills and come up with the football. The Steelers met with him more than once at the Senior Bowl. They sent scouts down to Toledo to scout a game during the season. And look, that just doesn't happen. You don't just, as an NFL organization, send scouts to a Toledo game. If this was Ohio State, if this was LSU or Alabama, it'd be a totally different situation. But this is Toledo we're talking about. You're not sending them down and saying, hey, just find the best guys. You know who you want some input on and some more insight into during his game. And that's what they got in Quinyon Mitchell. I think that they've done more than enough homework on him. I expect him to be maybe a top 30 visit. I expect them to go to Toledo's Pro Day. I expect them to get even more insight into this guy, and meeting or not meeting at the NFL Combine doesn't really move the needle for me. I don't put much stock into the fact that the Steelers didn't schedule a private meeting here in Indianapolis with their top prospect. They did meet with Kool-Aid McKinstry, Arnold, Cooper DeJean. They've met with a number of safeties, even a couple of tight ends, bunch of defensive linemen, and there are many more interviews coming. Quinyon Mitchell, just because he's not on there, I'm not looking at it and saying that it's over. Let's talk about the other big names that have been tossed out there during the NFL Combine of free agents, possible trades, everything. I think the biggest one is Brian Allen, who I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot of interest in. The former Los Angeles Rams center was released because of cap issues, and the Rams are going through a ton when it comes to just looking at their salary cap and trying to maneuver through years of just compiling to go and win a Super Bowl. And ultimately that worked. Now it's coming back to the point where they have to make adjustments. Brian Allen was one of them. He's 28 years old. He's a free agent. The Pittsburgh Steelers already moved on from Mason Cole because they knew that they were going a different direction in 2024. Omar Khan said today that the Steelers are open to veterans. They're open to rookies. They're open to trades. It's very hard to make a center trade in the NFL. There are 32 good centers, 32 backup centers. And at that point, you might as well just go hit free agency. Brian Allen, I've been told, is a name to watch. He is a name that is on the Steelers list and has the Steelers' interest. And if things could work out and the Steelers have some money, which they do right now, maybe they're looking at a 28-year-old veteran who could come in here and at worst case scenario be a bridge player to the point where they could draft somebody later in the rounds or the mid rounds and develop them over the next 2 or 3 years. At that point, you have a center, you have a Chooks Okorafor type player. And I know that that's he didn't work out the way that they wanted him to, but they slowly developed him because they knew his upside. There are a couple of guys in the NFL draft that I believe that the Steelers can do the same with, whether that's Barton, whether that's Van Pleet out of Georgia. You can go out and you could get somebody who isn't Zach Frazier, who isn't Jackson Powers Johnson, and develop them behind a name like Brian Allen. That's a name to watch if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. When it comes to the quarterback situation, they're not very interested in the top guys. And I think that's a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're obviously going to do some homework on names like Bo Nix and Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy. But there isn't anybody who stands out enough, who they believe will be there at 20, who's a game changer, who they say we have to change our plans entirely to go and get this guy. There have been many mocks where it's Bo Nix is going to the Steelers at 20. J.J. McCarthy trade is going to happen. I've been told none of that is that deep, and it's not that serious, and it's all projections. And when you look at the Steelers draft board, they don't have many quarterbacks on there because they understand that chances are they're not going to waste a draft pick on a guy when they still believe in Kenny Pickett and they want Mason Rudolph back. So for now, those first round guys, not there. The later round guys, the Joe Miltons of the world, they could be on their radar. And they could be options in the 6th or 7th round where the Steelers look at them and say, hey, look at this dude, just using Milton as an example because he's been tossed out to me, is a guy that has a huge arm, has a lot of development left in him, but could be a QB3 and could be a good QB3 that you could slowly turn into a QB2. They did it with Chris Oladokun. They thought he had a lot of potential. It didn't work out the way that they wanted him to. I think for the better because they landed Mason Rudolph out of this and they learned who Mason Rudolph truly is out of this. But maybe Milton is a guy or another 6th or 7th round pick is a guy where you can look at it and say, okay, the Steelers might be interested in going and acquiring or drafting a later round pick. But for anybody sitting around saying it's going to be J.J. McCarthy, it's going to be Bo Nix, I can almost guarantee you that it's not going to be. That's just where the Pittsburgh Steelers sit. Other names to watch as you just go through it, they're big Cooper DeJean guys, obviously. There is a number of guys. I wouldn't rule out a splash trade when it comes to an inside linebacker or even an outside linebacker. And I'm not as confident. I'm still waiting on more confirmation when it comes to an exact name that I hope I could bring you guys early next week or over the weekend. But for right now, just know that it's on the mind of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they understand that maybe they do have to make a move to acquire the talent that they're looking for. And maybe their defense needs one more superstar in it to kind of take themselves over the edge and go to the next step, the next stage in the process. Again, I hope by the end of the weekend, early next week, I could bring you guys an exact name. But for right now, it's in the works that they're considering. They have ideas, thoughts when it comes to making a splash for a linebacker and maybe a versatile linebacker that can play a little inside, play a little outside, make this team a little bit better than they stand. That's where we are right now as we leave day 3 of the NFL Combine, head into day 4 and the final 2 days here in Indianapolis. It's been a blast bringing you guys everything that we could possibly bring you, and I hope everybody's enjoying their time watching, covering, listening, and reading about all the prospects and all the moves that the Pittsburgh Steelers have on their minds when it comes to the 2024 NFL Draft. We got more coming on Monday, but for right now, those are the big news and notes that I have learned throughout the week. I got so much more coming to you guys over next week, so make sure that you guys are tuning in. And as always, I appreciate you, and have a good weekend and a beautiful day in the Berg.